today we are joined with the legendary John Cooper. We've been in contact for quite a while now. I've read John's book probably about 1,000,000 times now, so I know he's a very knowledgeable man. And the basis of today's talk I wanted to talk about really was about all the stuff in the media. I know you've had quite a strong opinion on it in regards to the coronavirus and the Black Lives Movement and just in general. Could you potentially just give us just a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do, John?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that intro, by the way. It's nice that you've read the book so many times. That's good to know. I mean, we know each other because of my coaching work, and I developed a philosophy which was a kind of a counterculture philosophy for the whole pickup artist industry. And I offered a different way of perceiving the social world, which was about not seeing it as transactions, but more about interactions and about growing as a person and about coming from the heart, less from the head. And, not trying to see everything as a win or a lose, as a goal, not trying not to see women as just achievements and goals, but also try and embrace the relationships that are omnipresent. And that formula that culminated in the book Game Over, which you just mentioned. And but my whole, I would like to think that I'm not pigeonholed with just the dating industry. I think part of what I like about myself is I'm a free thinker, and I question narratives, I question paradigms. The pickup artist community and the way that they think and act is a paradigm. And a paradigm is just effectively a perspective that has its own fundamentals that we operate from. So you could say flat Earth's a paradigm, round Earth's a paradigm. The fact that the planet's orbit around the sun is a paradigm. So these are all different paradigms. If you read Thomas Kuhn's book, he talks about paradigms aren't incrementally added on from the last bit of science that we learn. There's revolutions in science. That's how paradigm shifts occur. So you have a certain paradigm, and if you were to keep layering on top of that paradigm, you wouldn't reach the new paradigm. That whole paradigm has to collapse, and then there's a revolution, and a new paradigm comes in, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
but that's what I like. So for me, I like to question all paradigms and all narratives and all agendas, and try and offer a different perspective for people. And the one that I'm seeing at the moment is obviously, well, there's two at the moment. There's the coronavirus, COVID-19, and when the official narrative of that was bat soup, which I believe you've got to be batshit crazy to believe that. But there are people that believe that. Most people believe that in the world, which is fine. But that's a paradigm, right? There's another paradigm which is it's engineered in a lab, as a bioweapon. There's other paradigms which are there is no virus, and it's just these are just exosomes which we have in our body, cells with excretions of exosomes, which is actually what we have in our body. They're actually viruses that we have in our body, and they're all natural, and they actually aid the body. They're part of intercellular communication. And I actually had a chat with Dr. Bruce H. Lipton about that. And I asked him whether he thinks COVID-19 could just be a kind of a harnessing of our natural exosomes. And he goes, quite possibly. So There's all different types of paradigms there. And I think the answer to that is we don't know still in terms of the COVID-19. But I tell you what we do know. We know that our liberties and our freedom have been stripped almost bare in the last few weeks. And new bills have been passed whereby we can have our children ripped from us now and taken to facilities if they're showing any symptoms of COVID-19. And just think about that for a second. Symptoms, so a sniffly nose, a temperature, that's a slippery slope for me. And it's very, very ominous. There's also a bit of the parts of the law was changed in this bill so that they can now force medication on anyone they see fit. So, and that's for the next 5 years. So that means that if they wanted to, they could vaccinate you, and you don't have a damn say in it. This has all been passed, and because it's not been portrayed in the mainstream media, it's all kind of like flown under the radar a little bit. So there's lots of draconian Orwellian measures that have come in. The tracing, the apps, the contact tracing, the fact they've started to condition people to become snitches on their neighbours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To basically dob each other in if they see each other, breaking lockdown rules. The fact that there's almost been like a mass hypnosis going on. So there's actually similarities between what's been happening now and actually if you because I read into like cults and how cults are formed, keep everyone in fear, create a common enemy, use repetition of language to keep everyone in a sense of conformity. They're even doing like they're encouraging everyone to kneel for the George Floyd, which we're going to come on to. They're locking everyone down. So you're locking in your cells. You're only allowed out at certain times during the day. This is like slavery. This is actually cult. It's like cult like, or you could say slave like hypnosis that's going on. They're even talking about shaving your hair soon, shaving your heads. Where do we have that? We have that in prison, and we have that in the military, and so there's lots of stuff that's going on, which is rather dodgy at the moment. And this is all as a result of this COVID-19. So there's lots we can talk about. But where do you want to go from?
Yeah, that was brilliant, John. By the way, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting. You started out with saying, you don't just question the pickup paradigm is actually in most paradigms in our culture, in our media.
Yeah,
and I feel as though I'm similar nature. That I think I started with fitness and nutrition and looking at the research in there, and that translated now into looking more at like American politics, UK politics, stuff for the coronavirus, Black Lives Matter. It isn't just one particular paradigm. It's looking at it from like a scientific worldview, not just being fed what's being told to me. It's trying to question things. So, well, there's a few things. I do want to talk about Black Lives Matter. And maybe the similarities between that and COVID-19. And you mentioned then about people kneeling and stuff like this, similar to now with Black Lives Matter. Could you maybe talk about that a little bit as well?
Well, yeah, where do you want to start with the Black Lives Matter stuff? I mean, I could just tell you my whole opinion on it and just go from there if you like.
Go for it.
So people need to understand there's a difference between Black Lives Matter and Black Lives. Okay. They're not the same thing. Black Lives Matter is a slogan. It's a brand. It's attached to an organization, a political movement, right? So that's the first thing people have to understand. It's a little bit similar to if I was to say, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? And then someone says, no, he's a sexist, he's a racist. And I could say, you don't want to make America great again? What's wrong with you? Do you want it to what? You want to make America worse? You see, make America great again is just a slogan. Okay, Black Lives Matter is just a slogan, and they're using that slogan, they're weaponizing that slogan to accrue power and to accrue like millions and millions from it. Okay, so in actual fact, Black Lives Matter does not care about black people, because during these protests and riots, think about the thousands and thousands of black livelihoods that were lost. Think about all the I think there was half a dozen black people that died during these riots. I thought Black Lives Matter, or is it only one life matters? And what about the black cop that was murdered called David Dawn? Does his life matter? I guess not. I guess it doesn't, because it didn't really feature in any mainstream media. There was no mainstream media coverage of it, So really what Black Lives Matter is, it's a political ideology that's there to accrue power, to accrue money. And most of that money that's accrued from Black Lives Matter is actually just funding the Democrat candidates. If you can trace it all through their websites, and you can see it's hidden in plain sight, you could say. Wow. And it's all going to your Bernie Sanders and your all the white, straight, privileged men, which is ironic. Do you know what I mean? So it has nothing to do with Black lives. It's that's just that's the way that they bait people in and guilt trip people into giving you their money and their power. By using black people, they're exploiting the image of a black person in order to pull on people's heartstrings and make people feel like they're a bad person if they don't belong to this movement, or if they don't rally behind this movement. You know what I mean? And it's what it is this is not about Black lives. It's about imparting an ideology, a cultural Marxist ideology into America. And this has been well documented and well spoken about. You can go and look at Yuri Bezmenov. He talks about the subversion of America, and he talks about the 4 stages of psychological subversion: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. And he says that those 4 stages are the stages in which you can completely subvert a Western civilization. And those are all the things that are going on right now. There's plenty of people that you can research. You can research into the Frankfurt School. You can research into Antonio Gramsci and the long march through the institutions, and how all our academia has been completely bastardized with all this sort of social justice woke kind of feminine of ideology. So yeah, all of that's kind of going on at the moment, and Black Lives Matter is just an arm. It's a branch of this sort of cultural Marxism, or cultural, you could call it Bolshevism, which is actually part of the philosophy behind the Democrat Party. So we need to really use our courage and our discernment to see beyond the lies and the deception of some of these movements.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing as, did you know North Korea was called the Democratic Republic of North Korea? You know, it's hardly democratic, is it?
No.
They're just brands, they're just slogans.
Yeah.
And especially with Black Lives Matter or feminism, what they do is they window dress their movements with the disenfranchised, the vulnerable, the innocent. So with feminism, it's women, right? With Black Lives Matter, it's black people, or political correctness, or identity politics, or whatever it is, the transgenderism. They'll use that as the window dressing. So if you can imagine the shop window, it's using this vulnerable, innocent, disenfranchised, ostracized shop window front, mannequin, if you like, black person.
Yeah, yeah.
And behind it is a very destructive ideology. But we can't, if we were to criticize Black Lives Matter as an ideology, as a movement, what are people going to say? They'll say, you're a racist. How dare you? You're a bigot. You're a neo-Nazi. You're a far-right extremist. So it's the perfect storm. It's the perfect weapon, you know? I'll give you an example of that archetypally or mythologically. You have the Trojan horse going into the, being the guards were down, and the Trojan horse goes in, and then inside is the army ready to take down the village. But it looks good on the surface. It looks like this great gift. Or you could say that the Wicked Witch offering the apple to Snow White. That apple looks really beautiful, really nourishing and juicy and healthy and seductive. But underneath is the Wicked Witch. Beneath that is the Wicked Witch. You've got Adam and Eve with the apple. You've got I'm sure I had more of these. Yeah. But you Hansel and Gretel offering the sweets to the kids, you know. The witch is offering Hansel and Gretel these sweets, you know, they taste good. I want these sweets. It's good. The most destructive element of or put it this way, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Have you heard that expression?
Yeah, yeah.
So that which looks great on the surface is actually that which is causing the most destruction. So look at communism, the most destructive ideology of the last 100 years, window dressed itself with equality. And again, that feminine, that nurturing quality. So that's what it does. The political left window dresses its movements with empathy, compassion, equality, diversity, inclusivity, tolerance. So if you say anything against it, people go, what, you're not tolerant? You're not inclusive?
Yeah.
You don't like equality?
Literally.
Okay. So that's the game that's being played. And actually that's their shield. Their shield is to use the soft innocent. Look at Greta Thunberg as the perfect example. Climate change. Yeah. Who do they roll out? They roll out a 15-year-old girl she was at the time. Yeah. So that if you criticize climate change or Greta Thunberg, they say, how can you criticize a poor little girl? She's only 15. Don't be so cruel.
Yeah.
You know, you can see how they do it. They're weaponizing compassion. They weaponize all these terms, you know. And then look at climate change. Again, there's another one. So they're weaponizing compassion, so that if you criticize their agenda, their movement, their political movement, people go, what, you're not compassionate about the planet? Yeah. You don't care about the planet? So this is how they push their political agendas home. They use the front of all these sort of feminine, virtuous concepts, but behind it is this juggernaut, which is about destroying and subverting, civilization.
Yeah,
Western civilization to be precise.
That, yeah. I like that you are so knowledgeable. You're like a fountain of knowledge in yourself. I think it's really interesting, especially you mentioned with the feminism, because I've been looking at a lot of research on the race pay gap recently. Tons of it's so much to kind of unravel. But an interesting thing I had found was, interestingly, the pay gap between black and white women is actually relatively similar, and in some cases black women outperform white women.
Oh, right.
And the disparity is usually between the men. So it's interesting, the pay gap between women, that some women actually earn more than other women. But yeah,
they won't mention that though. They won't that won't ever be brought up in the mainstream media. No. Because the mainstream media, especially, let's just take America for in this instance, it's at least 95% left wing. Right. So what that means is, if there's any disparity between white and black people, where black people come out on top, such as the example you just gave, they won't cover that story. So that means that they're selectively cherry picking scenarios whereby black people are underprivileged or disenfranchised or killed by a cop or stuff like that. So if you can imagine, if you actually do this, if you look at the statistics, there aren't more black people dying at the hands of cops than white people. There's far more white people dying at the hands of cops, brutality. Now, I do understand that that's because there's also more white people as a demographic, and there's only 12.5% black people in the country. But you've also got to understand that black people make up far more proportion of the crime. Yeah. So there's 12.5% black people in the country. They make up 52% of the murderers in the country. Okay, there's 6 times more black people in prison than there is white people. So if you can imagine, there's 6 times more black people being handled by the police. They're being exposed to police 6 times the rate of white people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you'd expect to, so you have to weigh that into the whole equation. But the left-wing media, what happens is as soon as a black person dies at the hands of a white cop, they're all over it. Trust me. Yeah. They're going to be filming it, crews, you know, and then suddenly what they do is they'll publish that story. They'll broadcast it everywhere saying racist white cop kills innocent black man. And then what they do is they string all these together every time there's an incident where a white cop kills a black person. And so to our minds, when they string all these together over the last few months, it's like, it's happening again. I did believe again. Bloody white people, bloody white. And the joke is, it's like, it wasn't even racially motivated.
No.
It wasn't even bloody racially motivated. They've just extrapolated that as their narrative, because an investigation hasn't even been done to evaluate whether he killed George Floyd as a racially motivated attack or whether that was just a correlation. Mm-hmm. You know, the story headline should have been sadistic cop kills innocent person, or innocent man, if you like, innocent man. But what they've done is they've deliberately said white man kills black person. Why do you think they've done that? It's to suit the cultural Marxist narrative of oppressor versus oppressed, and continue this racial divide, to continue this this conflict of pitting blacks against white, pitting men against women in feminism, you know, pitting heterosexuals against homosexuals. This is a divide and rule strategy that's been used for millennia, and what the effect that has is it keeps us all in conflict. And it abdicates our scrutiny. It takes away our scrutiny from the real ruling class, the real elite class, who we should be fighting against, the state. Yeah. And this is where we need serious discernment, and we need to really come together as one human race and realize this is a game being played on all of us to basically keep us infighting, to take away our focus away from them. That's what we need to do.
Are you familiar with the research on the stop and search? Have you heard
a little bit? Yeah.
About typically more black people are stopped and stuff like this. The research I put on that was quite interesting as well. That usually more black people are stopped, but generally the people who are white who are stopped are more often arrested more so than black people.
Okay, that's interesting.
So and it looks like as well that statistically speaking, that more people are stopped isn't necessarily correlated with more crime, but on average, more white people who are stopped are arrested.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I've got a little image here that I wanted to show people. Yeah. Maybe I'll send this to you after as well, because it might not come out that well. But can you see this image?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you and everyone that's watching, if you were a cop, which one would you stop and search?
It would be apparent maybe the left person with the tattoos and the...
Right. Yeah. And I think if everyone's being intellectually honest... they would say the same thing, right? Yeah. So it has nothing to do with race. Let's be honest now. Yeah. Let's be bloody honest. Yeah. The difference is the let's say a lot of the black people that are getting pulled over and searched, they may be not, that their appearance might not be right. They might have their hoods up. They might have their trousers around their around their arses. Who knows? They might be blazing out hip hop from their cars. Whatever it is, they might be. It's less about just race, extrapolating that one variable and taking a full multifaceted look on someone. All right, we don't know the situation, but I'm guessing someone dressed like that white guy from that picture, I'm going to be stopping them if I'm a cop. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So the way that they say that they stopped him because he was black, it's terrible. Well, how about the area they're in? How about how they're dressed? How about what's going on? You know, were they looking suspicious? Were they, you know, did they have a spliff coming out of their mouth? I don't know. You know, you've got to take, there's hundreds of variables that come into it, you know, for people just to extrapolate, oh, it's just because they're black. That's like such low resolution, low IQ thinking.
Yeah.
To do that.
Add just a little bit onto that, John, then about choosing, you know, who would you start over someone based on their race. I can't remember the name of this person, but I got in a massive argument with someone who was white man. I won't mention his name. And he said, you know what, Josh, it is to do with white supremacy, and this is how it shows. He sent me a link, and this happened a couple of years ago. I don't know if you know this story. Girl in Oxford, who apparently stabbed her boyfriend. They say stabbed like they killed him. She basically slashed his, not them condoning it was still bad, slashed his fingers, slashed his legs, and her sentence got postponed or something. He said, you know why that is, Josh? And I was like, no idea. And he said, 'cause she's white. And I was just like, oh, there's so many, I mean, I'm not condoning it either. I think that she should have had her sentence a lot sooner. And I said, well, it doesn't mean I agree that it's because she's white that it's got postponed. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I need to look into it more because I do want to do a YouTube video on it. I personally thought that was the university trying to cover their own back, being that it was and more so that she is a white person, that means she's discredited, because I'm sure we could look through the archives and find 1,000,001 different cases of white people not getting away with things or black people getting away with certain things. There's always that dichotomous thinking, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
no, I mean, it's there's so many things that come into something like that. I mean, you could even just look at it from a gender perspective. They've proven that women get sentenced 60% of the length of sentences that men do for the same crime.
Wow.
You know, so they're getting 40% less time in prison for exactly the same crimes as men. So you could also you have to factor in the gender bias into that as well. You've also got to factor into all the other things that take into consideration, such as, well, the actual case itself, the incident itself, and who else is involved, such as the university, whoever, all these other things that come into it. What about if she's got a past history? Does she have any other criminal record, you know? What was her presentation like in the court case? You know, did she look compassionate? Did she look like she didn't care? You know, all those things have to be taken into account. I'm sure there's actually hundreds of these things, like dozens of these things. To only extrapolate race from that is the logical equivalence of having a 5-course banquet meal and judging the salt content.
yeah, very true.
You know what I mean? So that's why it's not that there isn't a racial issue to it. It's that because you're only picking out race from something which is a multivariate equation, you're lying through omission. Basically, you're being deceptive through omission. Another
little thing as well. Hear your thoughts on this, John, as well. I don't know if you've heard the discrimination on loans and stuff like this, of loans and mortgages and interest rates. I was going to ask one of my friends had said, yeah, Josh, if you look at the research on this, more about people who are denied loans and have higher interest rates. But when I've looked at the research on this, more often than not, Asian people have the highest acceptance of loans because you've usually got the best credit history and they usually pay a higher down payment on the first initial payment for a house, so they have low interest rates. So there's nothing to do with
right,
it.
okay.
So, but
I don't know, I don't know.
And same with, I think, like, if it goes in order, I think it's the highest acceptances from Asian people, then white people, then Hispanics, and then black people. But it's not to do with race. There is a lot, like you just mentioned then, it's like a multivariate thing.
It's multivariate, and the main one, I think, is your socioeconomic status, which people seem to overlook, you know. That's the main one, you know. There was a video just recently done on systemic racism in America, and it was talking about how you should look at this little cartoon. It's Jamal and Kevin. Kevin is a white person. He comes from a white neighborhood, and Jamal is a black person, comes from a black neighborhood.
Ben Shapiro,
Ben Shapiro did a reaction video to it, but that is less to do with race and more to do with your socioeconomic status, you know, because there's going to be black people living in Kevin's neighborhood and there's going to be white people living in Jamal's neighborhood, just like that kid I just showed you on the phone. You know, he's likely to come from maybe Jamal's neighborhood. I don't know, possibly. We don't know. Again, we don't know. But I would say that the reason people give out loans isn't just because someone walks in and they're black and they say, no, I'm not going to give you a loan. Oh, you're white, I'm going to give you a loan. You know, that's ridiculous. Banks want to make money. Banks will give, like, you know, speak to any banker, they all give loans out to people who they know can pay it back. That's what it's about. It's nothing to do with race. And to say it's about race is just I don't know. You need to go away and really just do your homework, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I love Ben Shapiro as well. I think he's so cool. Like I
He
think,
nail he rips it apart. To be honest with you, I'm not going to say that I'm like a Ben Shapiro fan because then people
yeah,
say that I'm alt right. But
yeah,
like he go and watch that reaction video that he does on that cartoon at least.
yeah. And I love the way he's so unbelievably fluid in the research, and and it also
Yeah,
references in the actual bio on the
yeah,
YouTube video all
exactly.
the studies, and it's not like he's just saying this is my opinion. You all need to go to hell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
It's because it's facts over feelings. That's why.
yeah, yeah,
You know, the whole left wing is the left wing is, and I'm apolitical. I don't take a political side. I don't vote for conservatives. I don't vote for the right. I call them both out on their bullshit. It's just all the most insanity right now is coming from the left.
yeah, yeah.
So that's why I'm calling that out predominantly. But I'm
Yeah.
apolitical. But I would say that the left wing is about feelings over facts. It's about dismissing facts, and the right is more about conserving facts, preserving facts, and looking at data and looking at science and being more using more empirical evidence.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I'm at. I'd rather be looking through that lens right now. And so that's why a lot of people get whipped up into going back to the Black Lives Matter stuff. You know, did you see people doing the little square on Instagram? You know, as if it's like all these white virtue signaling sort of liberals doing this square, as if that's somehow going to help. Do you know what I mean? As if, you know, and they're kind of, what they're saying is, you know, they're saying, I'm a good person because I did this. You know, I'm fighting racism by doing this little black square on Instagram. And what it's really saying is, it's saying how easy you are to be hoodwinked into something without, you know, without doing any of the critical thinking, without doing the independent thinking yourself, without seeing the shadow side behind these organizations, which are effectively just Trojan. Black Lives Matter is a Trojan horse political ideology. That's what it is. You know, I talked about that earlier. It's a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And so Black Lives Matter only emerges every 4 years. Why do you think that is?
Why is that?
Because of the elections in America.
Okay. Right.
You'll notice after this election, you won't hear from Black Lives Matter for another 4 years, and they'll come just in the run up to the next election.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Because these are all funded. You know, they have a Black Lives Matter. You can trace the funding to George Soros and the Open Society, and he puts millions into it, and he pays millions into literally renter mobs where they pay for people, agitators, to go down and cause shit. You know, cause mayhem. They even deliberately leave bricks on the sides of the road so they can smash up buildings. You know, there's plenty of footage where you've seen people turn up and just smash up windows, and they're all kind of like feds. You know, just you know, creating agitation. And there's actually, to be fair to the black protesters, they're saying this does not represent us.
No.
We are not a part of this. We do not want this. We want to do a peaceful protest. And then suddenly people are coming and throwing bricks, and all the bricks are laid out by special organizations, and people have tracked the companies that have dropped the bricks, and that's all been traced back to people like Bill Gates and you know, people like that. So it's all, you can see how it's all in cahoots, you know. And people need to really, really wake up to. I don't like you saying the word wake up, but you know, really need to use their discernment to see beneath the veil, beneath the window dressing of these ideologies and these movements.
That's it. Yeah, and I love that, John. Thank you for sharing that.
That's all right.
Very thought-provoking. That just shows to show how much I don't pay attention to politics. For me, I'm always like an ideas guy. I'll see a concept and I'll question it and analyze it. So I'm not really totally up to date. Almost like with football leagues as well. But interestingly, though, I mean, this whole debate on, you know, this extreme systemic racism. Interesting, when I've looked at the studies throughout the years, it's actually gotten better. And everyone is saying it is so much worse, and we're all gonna, you know, it's just gotten out of hand, and we need to. I had someone comment on my Facebook and say, well, we need to protest and riot hard and loot because there'll be no change otherwise. And it's like, you're saying it as if it's got worse. It's actually throughout the years got a lot better.